Gervonta Tank Davis, one of the brightest stars in boxing, is facing some backlash, and he has responded to those critics by saying this. A poster on Twitter named Lee said, "Gervonta, you wildin', bro. I F with you heavy, but I'm dead not watching this fight with Lamont Roach gang. I would rather you not fight at all. On God." And Gervonta Tank Davis replied to that person and said, "With that being said now, shut the F up. Get back to whatever you were doing." Now, if you don't know who Lamont Roach is, he is a 130-pound champion. He fights 5 pounds south of the weight class that Gervonta Davis is the champion of. For the casual fans, Gervonta is a 135-pound champion. Tank won his first championship belt at that 130 weight class. He is a fighter that's kind of like his weight class range, anywhere from 130 to 135. And in my opinion, I think he's just as good at 140. But beside that, many people feel like this after it was announced that he would be fighting Lamont Roach. Lamont Roach is not really considered a top boxer in the sport. Even though he is a champion, you will not or have not seen his name come up in most discussion around Tank. When people talk about Tank, the names that come up are Shakur, Devin Haney, maybe Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko. Everyone else is kind of like supporting cast. Rayo is like a secondary name. Baranchik has never come up with Tank's name. So I guess what I'm saying is Tank has certain guys that he's rivaled to. And since Lamont is not really in that conversation, Tank is getting a lot of pushback. However, they do have history because they saw each other in the amateurs. They from the East Coast, and there's some type of backstory to that. Now, it's being rumored that the fight will be December 14th in Houston, which is interesting, right? Because of that dynamic of where they're from and them being from the East Coast, you would think that would be maybe like a New York fight. But remember, Tank was entertaining fighting in Houston for the Frank fight. I think Megan Thee Stallion was performing at one of the arenas, and he said something like, "I let Meg have the date." So I think that the way they're trying to build Tank Davis's name, the way they're trying to capitalize on his pay-per-view markets and stardom is by moving him around in cities like Atlanta, like Los Angeles, like he fought in Baltimore, like he's fighting in Houston. So I understand the play. We're coming towards the end of the year. There's only 2 months left in the year. Tank fought earlier this year in June. He fought June 15th against Frank Martin. And here's what I'll say about, the fight and how I feel about it. I think when you wear the crown, when you're considered the face, when you're considered the king, you have the highest expectations. And you can't have it two different ways. I'm not saying that this is what Tank wants. I'm saying this to the boxing public who can't seem to understand why Tank would get this type of pressure, blowback, or response. When you are the face, you have the biggest target on your back. When you are the king, you have the biggest target on your back. You have the highest expectations everywhere. That means when you're fighting, when you're not fighting, that means inside the ring, outside the ring. Think of LeBron James. LeBron calls himself King James. Could he get through the league without winning a championship? Is his life not on display 24/7? People criticizing him and, judging him and things like that. He wears the crown, right? Just like Kendrick said, I'm a selfish ninja. The crown is heavy, right? The crown is heavy. So that is why Tank is getting a lot of criticism, because no one thinks that Lamont Roach can win. There's not a Tank fan, there's not a Tank hater that believes that Lamont Roach could beat Tank or is on Tank's level. And that is why he's getting criticism, right? Because, well, let's say, for example, you didn't think anybody was on Tank's level. Well, there are people that think Shakur can beat him, Devin can beat him, Tio can beat him, Loma can beat him. So there's a few names, right? And I guess Tank fans or some boxing fans will say, well, Tank basically chose Lamont Roach as his last resort. Maybe he did. I truly don't know. There's always some missed time frame where a fight couldn't happen, for example, right? At one point, Shakur was not injured, right? But now he is. So you can't really, you know, that's basically water under the bridge. Devin Haney is out there, but he's at 140. Lomachenko is out there, but apparently he didn't want to fight when Tank wanted to fight. Last I heard that he was willing to step aside so that Shakur and Tank could fight, but they're not fighting. Then you walk your way down the list of your Raymond Mortayas, your Floyd Schofields, your Keyshawn Davises, your Edwin De Los Santos. Depending on who you name, some of them guys got fights like Keyshawn Davis. Some of them guys reportedly are injured like Edwin De Los Santos. So here's what I hope. I hope that Tank is gonna fight Shakur Stevenson in 2025. And that's the plan, whether the public knows it or not. You see guys like Canelo, right? They become stars. They become the biggest attractions. And they'll fight their sparring partner. They'll fight Rocky Fielding. They'll fight Avni Yildirim. They'll fight a, what's that boy's name? Johns? I forgot. The UK bum bashing that Canelo does, right? So at one point, Tank was even entertaining fighting Conor Benn, or he was trolling him. I'm not really sure which one it was, but either way, I think that in one way, you know, he's basically saying, if you don't like it, don't watch. You know, that's always an option, and always, you know, that is true. If you don't like it, don't watch it. I'm gonna watch Tank no matter who he's boxing or who he's fighting against, because he's a great showman. He puts on a great show. My thing also is that coming off the Ryan fight where he did 1.25 million pay-per-view buys, you want to build on that, right? You want to go from 1.2 to 1.5 to 1.7 to 2 to, and keep going up, right? And I think that depending on who you fight, this could go the opposite way, right? It could go the opposite way. If you did 1.25 million against Ryan, of course, a lot of that had to do with the green print, which is fighting someone of a different ethnicity that brings in a different flag with a different country with a different set of fans. But when he fought Frank, reportedly, the pay-per-views were, let's just say, sub 500 or sub 400. Now, in today's time, that's pretty decent numbers. There's only a handful of fighters that fight on pay-per-view, like Anthony Joshua, Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury, Gervonta Tank Davis, and maybe one or two that I'm missing, right? So there's not a lot of fighters that can even do any pay-per-view buys. Devin Haney fights on pay-per-view, but he doesn't do what him and Ryan did. Pretty good numbers, right? They reportedly did, 500,000 or something like this. Reportedly, right? Don't pin me down. I'm just going off of what's out there. At the end of the day, we can't validate any of these numbers. It's just people telling us the numbers, right? But the bottom line is that I don't see how a Lamont fight could do bigger than his last fight with Frank Martin, right? So maybe he doesn't care. Maybe it's part of the plan. Maybe it's part of the broader plan. Who knows? But that was Tank's reaction. You know, I have so many people that follow me that no matter what I say or do, they're gonna blame me for what happens in boxing, or blame how I feel about boxing, how I feel about it. You know, I'll say this. When Shakur was talking about fighting Zepeda, I said, wait. I thought you wanted to fight Tank next. Why are we talking about or entertaining Zepeda at all? That's where I stand as far as consistency. When Shakur was calling out Tank, and Tank was not really tweeting or saying much, I said, I want to hear what Tank has to say about this, right? Shakur and Coach Kenny were on the live together. I didn't hear Tank ever respond to that, or any reaction, or say anything about the Shakur fight. Besides, I think he tweeted one time that something was cap. Then when Shakur announced that he was fighting Cordina on the co-main event of Bivol Better Biev, I was like, come on, bruh. I did a whole video with Tank in it, right, chat? And I went over the boxing schedule, and you know, basically the video was ass, right? When Tank was like, ass, right? Some of y'all remember that video. And so I was none too impressed with his fight against Cordina. I didn't like it. I still don't like it. And it may be a blessing in disguise that Shakur got injured, right? But the bottom line is, I'm consistent, man. I don't want to see my favorite fighters fighting foregone conclusions, fighting what I believe are mismatches. No disrespect to Lamont. He's a man. He puts on his gloves like anyone else. He's got amateur pedigree. He's a champion at the moment. He lost to Jamel Herring. And we all saw what Shakur beat the piss out of Jamel Herring, right? So not to do a triangle theory, but that's the caliber of level that they're on. I can't tell you that, you know, I say that Tank is a top 5 boxer in the world, regardless of weight. I'm the only entity in boxing, CHAMPSIDE, that has Gervonta Davis on the pound for pound list. Ponytail Magazine does not have Tank on the pound for pound list. ESPN does not have Tank on the pound for pound list. So the way they keeping you off, the way that they're not giving you that credit is based on these type of selections. And for Tank, he probably don't care about that. That money, again, the pound for pound list doesn't pay any bills. It doesn't get you any of the luxuries in life, right? But it does put a lot of respect on your name. And deep down, I never bought that Tank doesn't care about belts. I always said Tank won't allow belts to dictate his career. But he certainly cares about belts. He selected a champion for a reason, right? Someone with a belt. So I guess belts do matter. And he's never dropped his belt since Devin Haney moved up and after being undisputed. So belts definitely matter to him. He's been competing for trophies and belts his entire life. But he won't allow belts to dictate who he fights, meaning no sanctioning body can't make him fight a fighter that he don't want to fight. And that's what happens when you become a star, when you become big. But overall, it's hard to justify the fight, honestly, unless you take the stance that there's no one else available and, you know, he's the last resort. So if that's the stance, that's the stance. I don't know what's true, honestly. And I don't think anyone that's listening to this video knows what's true. We just believe what we want to believe. So that's what Tank said. If you don't want to see the fight, if you're not watching the fight, even if you rock with him heavy, you know, he says, shut the F up, get back to whatever you were doing. Let me know what y'all think in the comments. It's the baddest brand in the lane, CHAMPSIDE. Peace.